Hello, and welcome to Nostalgia Marcana. I'm your host, Doug Leaf. Each episode of this podcast, we'll look back on the movies, TV, games, people, and phenomena that we still love talking about all these years later, and ask ourselves why these bits of pop culture still enchant us today. This week, we'll be revisiting...
It's time for Animaniacs, and we're zany to the max. So just sit back and relax, you'll laugh, you can laugh. We're Animaniacs. Come join the Warner Brothers and the Warner Sister Dot. Just for fun we run around the Warner movie lot. They lock us in the tower whenever we get caught. But we break loose and bend the moose, and now you know the plot. We're Animaniacs. Dot is cute and Yakko yaks. Wacko packs away the snaps while the Plankton plays the sax. We're Animaniacs. Be Pinky and the brain who wants to rule the universe. Put feathers flock together, Slappy whacks them with her purse. Button chases Mindy while Rita sings a verse. The writer's script, we have no script, why bother to rehearse? We're Animaniacs. We have pay or play contracts. We're zany to the max, there's baloney in our slacks. We're Animaniacs, totally insane. Here's a show's name. Animaniacs, those are the facts.
It's time for Animaniacs. We've been promoting this episode for a while. This one's one I'm really excited to talk about. This is one of the real premier cartoons of the 90s. And it is, as the song says, zany to the max. We're going to get into it. We're going to get into all of the characters and weird things that made this show tick and what made it stand out from the rest. And to do that, fortunately, not only am I doing this, but not by myself. I've got my Warner brother-in-law and my Warner sister. Please welcome to the podcast, Amir Baum and Amy Baum.
Hi.
Hello.
Amy, I just realized this is the third time you've been on this podcast, and every time I've had you on to talk about cartoons from the early 90s.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, other than that we're both animation nerds that are about the same age.
Probably. And I mean, on the podcast, you've talked about friends, older brothers, like getting you into certain things. And of course, you got me into a bunch of nerdy things. I mean, last week you did Final Fantasy VI, and I'm like, yeah, you were the one that got me into the Final Fantasy video games. So.
Yeah, that's what older brothers are for. But let's talk about Animaniacs specifically. Amir, this was the one you suggested, and I want to know why you wanted to talk about Animaniacs.
I think for me, Animaniacs is just such a core part of, like, you know, my experience, in enjoying cartoons with such zany craziness with my brother. We would always love to watch it together, and every episode had something unique and different, and whether they tried covering this or that, or just whether they do come about Jerry Lewis or whatever. There was always so much variety in it. And it was always just such a fun time enjoying. I had such great memories enjoying it with my brother, and just having fun with all the different episodes. There was no predictability with it, and just great characters and memorable.
Yeah, we'll get into the Jerry Lewis for sure. There's a lot of Jerry Lewis to talk about, weirdly. But Amy, I'll throw it to you. Your nostalgic memories of Animaniacs.
Probably just watching it. I must have been in about 5th grade when it came out, and I just thought it was funny. I mean, I watched, Tiny Toons before that, and I must have been, 8 or 9, maybe 8 years old when that came. That was 91 that came out.
I think so.
Okay, so 7 or 8 years old. Yeah, so I guess Animaniacs was kind of a fun predecessor. I guess the next fun step, and that was just all over the place. And the funniest things, and they would back in, they drove historical figures crazy, and they drove their therapist crazy, and they just had so, and even just the other characters, like Pinky and the Brain, obviously were always so fun. Slappy Squirrel had her own shtick. Yeah, Buttons and Mindy, Rita and Runt. Not so.
Well, we'll get my favorite part either.
And of course, we'll get into it. But I have, as an adult, I have my own issues with Rita and Runt.
We'll hang on. We'll put a pin in that for later. My memories of Animaniacs are you mentioned Tiny Toons, and that is the launch pad for this. That the folks over at Warner Brothers wanted to revive Looney Tunes in some way. Looney Tunes had started to become popular again because of reruns, and so they made Tiny Toons as a way of trying to capitalize on that, and it was a monster success. And that paved the way for Animaniacs, and it paved the way for Batman the Animated Series, which we talked about on a previous episode. It had a lot of the same people involved with it. So we'll get into some of those people who helped on both shows. And then that also paved the way for Freakazoid, which I want to do an episode on at some point because I love Freakazoid.
I think I saw like 2 episodes of Freakazoid.
But
Maybe I watched 1 episode.
Yeah, but there's a progression in that, like, Tiny Toons, for as, like, wacky and zany as it is fairly conventional and tame compared to Animaniacs, which is fairly conventional and tame compared to Freakazoid. But there is that wonderful sense of, like, the inmates running the asylum, both in the show and then in terms of, like, the production of the show, because you both alluded to, like, stuff that's in there and how, like, random it is. And there's just this weird, especially going back to it now, like, there's so much stuff in this show that's like, who is this for? Like, because, like, the like 8 to 12-year-olds watching it have no clue what these references are. And it just feels like the writers were allowed to do whatever they wanted as long as it made them laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm sure in a lot of cartoons, the writers that kind of referenced a lot of things that were kind of, adults would definitely get it. But I mean, a kid that was 8, 9, 10 years old, even though they wouldn't get the reference, it still worked for them because they just find it silly and entertaining, which I'm sure at 10, 11 years old, that's how I found Animaniacs.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember, Amir, like, watching this and how you reacted to it, like, all of these stuff that was clear? You knew it was going over your head. You just didn't, right? I mean, so how did you feel about it?
I think my brother noticed it a little bit more, and I think we really gravitated to the show because Steven Spielberg production. We love Steven Spielberg. But, when I saw it, it just kind of went over my head, like, whether it was sexual references or whatever suggestive reference they had. It's like, now when I see it, I'm like, what? I didn't catch that or something. It's, there's always something you realize, like, when you're older, I'm like, wow, that would never pass today. The way they express that very suggestive kind of, topic or reference, you know what I mean? So I think it kind of slipped by my radar when I was young and 11, 12 years old watching it, but
yeah,
probably notice it. If I was older, probably would notice it a bit more.
Well, you're talking.
My brother noticed it a little bit more when we were.
Yeah,
your brother's a film nerd.
Yes, I mean, my brother's a couple of years older than me. He was already 13 when it came out, so he kind of knew about. He kind of, I can understand those references maybe a little more.
Yeah, but even then, like, I'm about the same age as your brother, and I was able to detect, like, okay, I know I have some vague idea that they're referencing something that I might even have a vague idea of what it is, but even still, like, we'll like I said, we're going to get into each individual segment on the show, but, like, Goodfeathers, for example, the entire thing is a riff on mafia movies that I was way too young to have seen.
Yeah,
at the time, and I was thinking about this in the context of, like, modern stuff like DreamWorks movies, where they will do a reference in, like, a Shrek movie. Yeah. That's like this groan-worthy, awful thing that's like, well, here's a Milquetoast Matrix reference for the adults. Remember this thing? Isn't that hilarious? You see a thing that you've seen before, and it goes over like a lead balloon then, and it doesn't age well. Animaniacs ages well, I think, because instead of doing just, like, a joke that's a reference, they're like, screw it. We'll do this entire episode that's Apocalypse Now. Not just like a reference, but the whole thing, right. And just go. You have to be along for that ride. Yeah, and they're comfortable with the fact that, like, yes, we know the kids won't get it, the parents will. Yeah, but it's not just, like I said, it's not just one joke; it's the whole thing, and that's what makes them kind of unique, I think.
Yeah, I think, like, Macbeth is a good example of when you said, like, what young kid knows about Macbeth? I didn't know about Macbeth when I was, like, that age.
We got
a
Shakespeare unit in 4th grade, so we got to learn about
I didn't.
Macbeth.
I was exposed to Shakespeare when I was in 9th grade. I didn't know about that at the time when it came out. I remember seeing that episode.
Well, Amir, you mentioned Spielberg. This was done under his auspices, as was Tiny Toons, and I think because of Spielberg's involvement, that's one of the reasons you're kind of allowed to have a show like this, because I think studio notes that would probably tell them to, like, cut this, tone this down. Spielberg had the, like, muscle to step in and go, like, this is my show, I do what I want. And they go, okay, yes, Mr. Spielberg, do whatever you want. Yeah. And I don't think the show would exist without him being able to be that protective over it.
Absolutely, yeah. He had, without him, it probably wouldn't have been as successful, or even got away with most of the stuff that they show in it, for sure.
And beyond that, they wouldn't have had the budget they had. Yeah. I mean, this show has it has a full orchestral score, which the average cartoon would not have. Yeah. Of this era, the quality of the animation, and And of course, some of the talent involved. This is a good time to talk about some of the people who worked on this, especially the voice cast. One person I didn't name check in the Batman episode, I want to give credit to on that because they worked on both shows, is Andrea Romano, who is the voice. She was basically responsible for casting all of the voices. So she made Kevin Conroy into Batman and Mark Hamill into the Joker. Oh. And she is responsible for the voice casting here, bringing in a lot of just animated voice heavyweights. So the people I want to name check here are Rob Paulson, who is very prolific. He is Yakko, Dr. Scratch-a-Sniff, and Pinky on this show. You would also know him as Raphael on the original Ninja Turtles cartoon. That's where you got to start. He's he's PJ on Goof Troop. He's Carl Weezer on Jimmy Neutron for slightly younger kids who would know his work. But he's everywhere. This is the cartoon voice you would hear all the time. And I think he is just the linchpin of the thing. I think he's so good.
Yeah, the variety of just voices alone and like characters and styles that he will pull off. That's pretty incredible.
They just kind of like lean on him, I think, to do a lot of heavy lifting here. They also have Tress MacNeille.
That was Dot.
She is Dot. She is another just monster voice actress. She's so good, and she's on everything. She's on The Simpsons a bunch.
Right. She was Babs Bunny.
She was Babs Bunny, which is what got her this job.
I remember thinking, like, Dot Warner sounds so similar to Babs Bunny.
Yeah.
Well, and like I said, she's a lot of Simpsons characters, a lot of like minor Simpsons characters. She's not any major Simpsons characters, but like she's all over it. Every time they have like a woman in a suit with shoulder pads, it's Tress MacNeille. She is the
so that's who that was all the time.
Yeah, she's the crazy lady who throws cats at people. That one comes to mind. She's Brandine, Cletus's wife.
She's basically been Daisy Duck in every Disney thing for the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like if you go on her IMDb, it's got to be 10 miles long. She's on everything. You got Jess Harnell as Yakko, which this was kind of his first big voiceover thing. I'm not sure what he's done since. I didn't have a chance to look him up, but just killing it with this weird decision to do a Beatles voice for Yakko.
And Countries of the World.
And Countries of Yakko.
That's Yakko.
Yakko gets his own. Though. He's the States. He has a song that's
the States.
The States, and then he had a couple burps of classical music on some of them.
Although that's not Jess Harnell. The burps are credited to Maurice LaMarche, who is the voice of the Brain.
Okay.
And another, again, prolific voice actor. He's all over everything. But those are the four people I really wanted to highlight. Oh, and Frank Welker, who we talked about on the last episode because he did a bunch of voices for Gremlins. But Frank Welker is the king of doing weird animal voices.
He's in so many cartoons.
Yeah, we mentioned he's Abu in Aladdin.
That was him?
But here he is. He's Ralph, the security guard, and he is also Runt, who we'll talk about the voice that he chooses for that. But yeah, again, very prolific voice actor. So that's your cast, your core cast. Those five people that do most of the heavy lifting, and man, all of them are just crushing it every episode here. They just let them do whatever they want, and they're so good.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite character before we get into the individual things? Do you have a favorite character?
Yakko.
Yakko? Okay. Why Yakko?
Oh, he was just so silly. As much as I love Pinky and the Brain, I just have to say there's something about Yakko that just anything he did just made me laugh.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Amir, do you have a favorite character?
I would say Yakko, just because he's so random, like with all the the countries of the world or all the states, and just like balances out Yakko a bit because he's just so random and has the most interesting lines and just so funny and just zany and.
Well,
I like his style. Like, he's not as crazy as Yakko, but he's like still like it has an energy.
Well, the Warners are kind of all crazy in their own way.
They are.
Yeah, I just like him. I just always kind of lean towards Yakko a bit more.
Okay,
as a style and the things the different scenes. He was kind of featured in.
I do like Yakko. He is very Groucho Marx, and like
yes,
we're pretty sure we'll talk about the individual groups. My favorite, I think, was the Brain, because he had such a unique like gimmick to him. It was so weird, just the concept of the mouse trying to take over the world. And then once I kind of keyed into the Orson Welles-ness of it as I got older, I was like, oh, that's so cool. Just to make Orson Welles is very funny. But yeah, it's such a strong character, and he got so many great lines, just zingers. So I was always into the Brain. But the structure of the show was neat. Like because it is it has the structure that like a Looney Tunes or a Tiny Toons had, where it's very episodic. But they would also put in all these little like interstitials, the good idea, bad idea stuff.
The wheel of morality.
Yes.
Yeah, they'd put all this stuff in there that like it reminded me, because at the time I was getting into Monty Python. And this is like Monty Python for kids in a way. Like they would put all this little random stuff in there, these running gags or like just silly things that again just felt like we're running wild in what we're doing, and just no one's minding the store. We can get away with whatever we feel like.
Yeah.
So with that, I guess we should probably start talking about the group. So we figured we would normally when we do TV shows, we do kind of episode by episode, and that doesn't really work here. So we're just going to talk about kind of the groups in general. So first, kind of to talk about the Warners, if you want to sort of talk about what the concept is for what the Warners are.
So the idea was they were, I guess, drawn in what it was like 1929, 1930. They were, just so freaking crazy. Nobody could deal with them. So they locked away their films, and then they locked them in the water tower at the Warner Brothers studio. And then I guess the idea is, however many years later, it's, 1994 or so, or 1993, 1994, they escaped.
Newsreel of the Stars. Dateline Hollywood 1930, the Warner Brothers studio. Here at the studio's new animation department, the artists toiled endlessly to come up with cartoon stars, ultimately creating 3 new characters, the Warner Brothers and their sister Dot.
Hello, Nurse.
Unfortunately, the Warner kids were totally out of control.
Boingy, 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 boingy.
The trio ran amok throughout the studio until their capture. The Warner's films, which made absolutely no sense, were locked away in the studio vault, never to be released. As for the Warners themselves, they were locked away in the studio water tower, also never to be released. Publicly, the studio has disavowed any knowledge of the Warners' existence to this very day, when the Warners escaped.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that decision, because they don't do a lot with this concept that they're like out of, that they've been Austin Powers, from the 30s to the 90s.
But then they also, because they're also helping like historical figures. Like one episode, they're helping Einstein, then they're helping Abraham Lincoln, and then they're helping Beethoven. And then, they basically, and they live in the water tower. They have like furniture in there.
Yeah, they don't seem very trapped.
Yeah, they have all these different like worlds and characters they go to, through all the time. They don't seem really trapped, even though.
Well, one thing I noticed,
kind of trapped in there.
One thing I noticed in revisiting this stuff is there's a lot of like, don't think too hard about it. Like, screw it. We're just doing it because it's funny.
It's just crazy.
So yeah, worrying about the like internal logic of Animaniacs is a fool's errand. Like, it's not meant to be consistent or make any sense.
Isn't that kind of what the Please, Please, Please Get a Life Foundation segment was about? It's like
just so random.
I put that on the list of things to watch because it's very funny.
Very meta.
And
with a comic book guy like character.
Well, that's
they made it for me.
Well, that's kind of what the stereotypical nerd was in the 90s. Like, now we have so many people on like social media has made it easy for everybody to like point out all this stuff in cartoons or whatever shows and criticize.
Yeah, there was also social media back then.
Welcome to Twitter. That's what here's my Substack. With my 1,500 word essay about inconsistencies in the clown episode with Yakko, right? So it is. This is an episode that if you haven't seen it, it's a segment. It's just a fake commercial for the Warners do for the Please, Please, Please Get a Life Foundation, where they just try. The idea is like these like hyper technical nerds that spend all day on the internet complaining. Which, by the way, the internet barely existed when this came out.
Yeah,
but like
it was all on our desktop, not on the palm of our hands by far.
And then it just
and it was through dial-up.
But I bet all of the things all of the inconsistencies that the guy is pointing out as these like rattling off in this episode, there's a misspelling of blah blah blah. I bet those are all real.
Yeah, that
like people actually commented
basically felt like a big like F you to those people.
Yeah, like we don't care about you. Go away.
It reminded me. Yes, it's obviously like the Simpsons comic book guy was this. This idea had popped up there. It popped up in other places, but this is it's so like just it is kind of a big middle finger to the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like it's sort of good natured and very funny. Like there's a literal joke in The Simpsons, that famous episode with Poochie, where Homer and the other people from the cartoon are at like a little speaking engagement, and they're taking questions from the audience, and the questions they're getting are like this level of technical and Homer doesn't know what to do or what to say. And
Oh
it's
yeah,
like,
I remember that.
yeah, and for the first time, Animaniacs and not The Simpsons did it first. But it's so funny.
Closed captioning was wrong when it said 4. And in the Pinky and the Brain title, the Tokyo movie Shinjo version, which is on 1s, it has BH 90201, which is supposed to be BH Beverly Hills 90210. How could they get that wrong?
Is this you? Are you happily engrossed in inconsequential cartoon trivia to the point that your socks can probably stand up by themselves? Well, if you are, there's hope, there's help, there's the Please, Please, Please Get a Life Foundation. Since its inception, the Please, Please, Please Get a Life Foundation has gently and calmly brought people back to Earth.
Okay, in Gift of Gold, there's this guy with a t-shirt that says 839 on it, and that's the Cartoonist Union, Local 839, okay? But what's amazing is the episode number is 406-839.
Other, you want to talk about some other bits here in the Warner section? Because we watched a few of them just to get ready. But
Well, I am so glad you picked the whole thing with the clown, because that was one of the funniest ever. I remember laughing at that so hard. And I mean, this was probably who I learned who Jerry Lewis was, and that he was a little
weird.
Yes,
Kooky,
but for
at
whatever reason, the French love him.
Yeah, so
And the kookiness really runs supreme with everything he does.
This is a short called Clown and Out. Do you want to just say what the general premise of this is?
So I guess the CEO of Warner Brothers, hires a clown for Wakko's birthday, not realizing that Wakko is like really scared of clowns.
Yeah.
So the clown goes up to the water tower and keeps trying to get in, and of course he's freaked out. He falls off the tower and hurts
he
himself.
tries riding his bike.
He gets slammed in the face. And then eventually Wakko, I think he has a half water tower and he drives through. He's in
It's like a drawing of a water tower. He goes through the door and then just falls to the ground.
And it's just how deadpan he's like, I'm in the sky.
I wish the ground was really soft.
And then eventually he gets into Wakko tricks him into a rocket ship and he
goes
sends
to
him
Mars.
into Mars.
It's a great bit.
See you to Mars.
And yeah, again, Jerry Lewis. So the voice of the clown is Paul Rugg. He's one of the writers of the show. And he does this Jerry Lewis, a very good Jerry Lewis impression. Specifically, well, he does both. He does sort of Jerry Lewis's regular speaking voice and the white life and the clown, which is from the original Nutty Professor, that version of Jerry Lewis. And this voice became Freakazoid. It is the voice he does for Freakazoid. And again, no kid our age. I still haven't seen a Jerry Lewis movie.
Me neither.
No interest.
I've seen clips of them, but I've never seen the whole thing from start to finish.
Yeah.
Maybe Nutty Professor.
I've seen
that
bits
might be
of
the
it.
only one
Yeah.
I saw. My parents weren't the biggest fans.
Well, there's a bunch, but there's a bunch of Jerry Lewis stuff in this particular thing. So one, you have him singing this song about you'll never laugh alone.
When you want to scream, put away that frown and never be scared of a clown. Laugh on and on and on.
Which is a reference to a song called "You'll Never Walk Alone," which Jerry Lewis would sing when he did these telethons to raise money for muscular dystrophy. Mm-hmm. So it was that song. The other thing that's an even weirder, deeper cut is that Jerry Lewis is infamous for this movie he made that has never been released. It was never finished because it is apparently too awful to watch.
Wow.
Called "The Day the Clown Cried." And
since I heard of that.
Yeah, there's a reason you haven't heard of it. It's terrible. Apparently, it might be you might be able to see it in 2024. There was some stipulation that finally it will come out in some capacity because he's been dead for so long. Mm-hmm. But the plot of the movie is it's kind of Life is Beautiful. He plays a clown in a concentration camp or something. It's real dark and just sounds miserable to watch. So doing Jerry Lewis as a clown in this Animaniacs episode is, I think, a reference to this clown movie that he made. Wow. It was so awful. But yeah, really, but a very funny bit of slapstick and just sort of the way they kind of Wakko continuously tortures him or tricks him. And he's not a malicious clown. Like there's nothing actually scary about him. He's just a mildly annoying.
No, but I mean, but he's clowns are weird and
very
clowns can be
persistent.
creepy, and it's perfectly normal for people to be scared of clowns for whatever reason.
Just doesn't want to give up and tries very hard and doesn't goes way beyond he needs to go.
Clown is just not taking
and being
it.
creepy. Yeah.
Did you guys research it all? I tried to find out because he sings 2 songs. There's the "You'll Never Laugh Alone" song,
And then the nice and chubby baby one.
Yeah.
When the whippoorwill whippers in the wind can whipper back. Oh, nice and chubby baby.
That's the whole thing.
And that's the one he's singing at the end when he's on Mars with the Martians.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I tried to figure out what that was a reference to. I could not find it. It may be just some weird thing that Paul Rudd came. I could not, for the life of me, find what that was a reference to. But yeah. Anyway, so that's that one. And you've mentioned a couple times Yakko's World, which is when he just sings all of the countries.
Yeah, and I know how they do that all in one take.
I'm sure.
I'm amazed how they could do all the countries in one take in a breath like that. I was like,
to write that to get the musicality perfect,
and to
lip sync all the countries, and then whoever had to animate that.
Oh,
make sure he was pointing
and to point at the right countries and all of Africa. That was like the most involved one. I'm like, every country in there.
I agree with you. To be able to write that, you have to sit there and probably put every country on Earth on you put them all on a piece of paper, and then you're like, okay, United States, Canada, Mexico, and you got to make them all rhyme. I memorized that at some point.
Oh my god!
And I realized, doing this podcast, I'm realizing this about myself is that I look back at all these things we've gone back on. Anywhere there was like a really long, complicated thing that I liked, I would commit it to memory for no good reason. Like we talked about the Ren soap monologue from Space Madness. I memorized that. I memorized the Chemical Elements song that's I mentioned in the Weird Al episode. I memorized that. At some point, I could do the entire Yakko's World. I somehow got it committed to memory.
Wow.
Because there's something wrong with me.
Yes.
And the weird, I
if only your friends knew that you could do all that.
I know. I still have part of it. I can do the first verse, but the rest of it I don't have.
I mean, it's actually, I think there was one day we were, driving in the car with our son, and Amir has the Sirius radio in his car, and there's a kids station, and it was on.
Yeah, Kids XM, Kids Place.
I know.
It came on.
I know they've done like a few like Animaniacs in concert things.
Yeah,
and Rob Paulson will get up and do the whole thing, so he's still got it, I guess, committed to memory.
Wow.
And now, the nations of the world, brought to you by Yakko Warner.
United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic, Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador, too, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, Guyana, and still Guatemala, Bolivia, then Argentina, and Ecuador, Chile, Brazil, Costa Rica, Belize, Nicaragua, Bermuda, Bahamas, Tobago, San Juan, Paraguay, Uruguay, Suriname, and French Guiana, Barbados, and Guam.
Very, very impressive thing. And they did, like as you mentioned before, they kind of iterated on it by doing one with the states, and they did one with the solar system, and they did one with something. They did something through time. Like they've done a bunch of these.
Yeah.
But we haven't talked about Dot much. Princess Angelina Contessa Louisa Francesca Banana Fana Francesca III.
Well, Dot's shtick was really just she was a cute little girl.
Yeah, she's cute girl, there for the ride and just being silly and going with it. I felt like just and throwing in her antics and her cuteness.
I think she does obviously make good jokes about it, like I'm cute, but she's every bit I think as feisty and witty as Yakko is.
It's true.
And
it's true.
For cartoons of that era, and I mean you don't have a big feminine presence for the most part, and I felt like Tiny Toons and then this show kind of pushed back on that because you have Dot and you have Slappy, Squirrel. And you have a few more female, like in the original Looney Tunes, there are like zero. I think finally the '90s was when that was like great for girls in cartoons. Because even like the girls in the '80s cartoons were just like, what She-Ra, the Thundercats. I mean, these Gem and the Holograms.
They weren't like. I was thinking of like something like the Webby from the original DuckTales was, or like. Things like that.
It's like we have a girl.
Yeah.
Well, what do you want? She's got a dress on.
And she was like a little crybaby.
Yeah. More just like a symbol than actual
I'll defend
character.
I'll defend Webby Gale. I like Webby Gale. But yeah, she's not Dot. In fact, like they I think they doubled down on that aspect of Dot's character in the reboot that they started in 2020. Like she's even more like feisty and like don't mansplain to me, like a lot of that, which I'm cool with. Like I Dot scares me a little bit, but she is like
how unpredictable feisty she
like
be.
even like the DuckTales reboot, I think like Webby was like totally feisty. In that.
Oh, they definitely changed her character around a lot for that. Spoiler alert: we might be doing a DuckTales episode soon. So look out for that. But Dot is secretly. I feel like she's kind of the secret weapon of the show because you expect Yakko to do all of the Groucho Marx lines, and she would always come in with like she'd kind of come up with an even like spicier zinger to hit everybody with. So she's interesting to watch her.
Dot, may I call you Dot?
Yeah, but call me Dottie, and you die.
Dot it is. I'm going to show you some pictures, and I want you to tell me what they look like. What do you say to this?
I'd say you're not a very good artist.
I didn't draw that.
Well, whoever did needs to go back to school.
No, it's an ink blot.
I'll say.
No. It's not supposed to look like anything.
Then you did a very good job.
I didn't draw it!
She gives some extra zest to the character, to the scene.
Yeah.
Their feistiness.
Anything else we want to say about the Warners before we move on to one of the other featured groups in the show?
Yeah, I like the do you want to take a survey? So much because you know why? Like I used to go to movie screenings like my brother. And there were those exact same people who would say, do you want to take a survey? Like, no. You know what I mean? And then they could just, do you want to take a survey? And they just keep hounding them, and they don't want to take no for an answer.
I wonder if they would get like the Nielsen rate, Nielsen rating,
the television rating.
Yeah,
I was laughing so hard.
I do know that on that particular episode, whoever wrote it, I can't remember. I think it was Tom Ruegger who created the show, or whoever. I think it was Tom Ruegger who wrote that episode. But he said that was based on exactly like what you're saying, like a real experience he had with being hounded for a survey. So he just goes, all right, well, I'll have the Warners do it. You know, it'll be fun if the Warners get hounded for a survey.
Would you like to take a survey? Okay. Do you eat beans? Would you like to see a new movie starring George Wendt? Do you eat beans with George Wendt? Would you like to see George Wendt eating beans in a movie? Do you eat beans at George Wendt movies? Would you like to see George Wendt in a bean-eating movie? How many beans do you eat at George Wendt bean-eating movie? How many bean-eating movies have you seen with George Wendt?
Let's move on to, I guess let's do the Goodfeathers.
Okay.
When the birds hit the street looking for food to eat, that's Goodfeathers.
That's Goodfeathers.
And I'm cooing at you and you're cooing at me, that's Goodfeathers. Take no guff cause they're tough, but they're stuffed, no cream puffs, that's Goodfeathers.
Because this is again like so you've got the three characters. You got Bobby, Pesto, and Squid, who are literally just impressions of Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and Ray Liotta from the Goodfellas, a movie that I don't think I even saw until college. Maybe probably later than that. Like,
I saw it when I was like 13 or 14. My family, my brother was a big fan of those gangster movies. I think probably by the time I was in middle school or high school, I saw it. My family. We would watch movies together every Friday, so someone would watch that. Those gangster like movies.
Yeah,
those tradition.
I kind of enjoy these because I just remember sort of thinking like I like these impressions because I at least recognized who these actors were. Sure. Although I always thought that Squid was supposed to be Jack Nicholson rather than Ray Liotta, but that wouldn't make it. He sounds more like Jack Nicholson to me, but again, not from Goodfellas, so it wouldn't make any sense. But such a weird idea of like we're going to do mafia stuff with these birds,
with pigeons.
I know it just seems so random. Like make these pigeons bad and like
then of course you have
gangsters.
Kind of like an amalgam of all mafia movies. You have they have the god pigeon that they get advice. His feet. Get advice from the god pigeon,
and they have him just literally. He just talks like just vaguely Italian gibberish. You can't understand him. It's sort of the Marlon Brando. I mean, that's obviously they're going for, but So he comes in. There's a lot of like just general like references to Scorsese because I think they
perch on the Martin Scorsese statue,
right? Which of course does not exist, but or maybe it does now. I don't know, but Of course they do, because they are basically Scorsese creations. But I remember as a kid, like, I didn't know what to make of it other than, like, I know they're doing mafia shtick. Like, I had learned enough through osmosis to recognize that, even though I hadn't seen The Godfather or Goodfellas.
Right.
Or
I'm pretty
movies.
sure by the age of 10 or 11, I hadn't really seen much mafia movies.
No, I don't think I had any concept of
Yeah.
what the mob was really at that point. Except, I guess there's mobsters in Batman, so I had a sense of what organized crime was. But this was, and they're not very crimey.
No.
You know, they don't have. They're still the protagonists. They're not like, robbing people at gunpoint or anything.
Right.
For me, the only like real gangster movie I remember when I was 10 was Bronx Tale. But just because my brother was like so into that movie, and like we saw it together as a family, and it had De Niro in it and everything, so I kind of had an understanding of like gangster movies by the time that episode came out a bit. So I thought, like that's so interesting. They're doing it with birds and just making up all these scenarios within like mirroring the movie. It was just kind of a interesting take on it.
And it was also an excuse to do other kinds of bits. Like, so there was the one that I think I watched for this, which was a take on West Side Story,
Right.
which still involves gangs, but not quite
mafia.
gangs.
Yes.
I mean, this was like, West Side Story was teenagers fighting over territory.
Yeah.
But
Which I mean,
my father had the vinyl record of West Side Story. We listened to it all the time.
Right. Which I mean, I hadn't seen West Side Story when this originally came out. I mean, I think I knew there was a musical called West Side Story. I eventually learned, okay, West Side Story is basically, modern Romeo and Juliet. And then I think by the time, I don't think I saw the movie until I was in high school. We got to see it on stage.
Yeah, I saw it when I was
a couple of years ago.
I saw it when I was 10 or 11 by the time the show came out.
It's interesting.
That take on it.
Because not only are they sort of doing general mafia stuff, but they're very specifically focused on, for obvious reasons, Goodfellas. And they would always do, I always thought it was very funny, this bit where Pesto would take something out of the wrong way.
Right, like Squid gives him a compliment and then like he, takes it the wrong way.
And every single one of that is a riff on the, you think I'm funny, do you? Like, funny how? Like a clown?
Yeah.
Bit from Goodfellas, which of course results in Joe Pesci like beating a guy.
Right, yeah.
Kill him? I forget if he kills him or not, but...
You're a big cops. Really funny. Really funny. What do you mean I'm funny? It's funny, it's a good story. It's funny. You're a funny guy. What do you mean? You mean the way I talk? What? It's just, you're just funny. It's funny, the way you tell the story and everything. Funny how? I mean, what's funny about it?
Tommy, no, you got it all wrong.
Oh, Anthony. He's a big boy. He knows what he said. What'd you say?
You're right.
Funny how? What?
Just, you're funny.
You mean, let me understand this, because maybe it's me, I'm a little fucked up, maybe. But I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you? I make you laugh? I'm here to fucking amuse you? What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
No, just, how you tell the story. What?
No, I don't know. You said it. How do I know? You said I'm funny. How the fuck am I funny? What the fuck is so funny about me? Tell me. Tell me what's funny.
Get the fuck out of here, Tommy.
You motherfucker. I almost had him.
Don't laugh, guys. I just want to be a tough bird, like you, Pesto.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I said you're tough, that's all.
You're saying I'm an overdone piece of meat? Is that what you're saying? What am I, a plate of dry steak butt meat here to amuse you?
No, I didn't say that. I just said you're tough.
I am tough?
Yeah.
I'm tough.
Yeah, you're tough.
That's it! Tough! I'll show you tough!
Yeah.
That's it. You're
And
talking to me.
It was so weird because like that moment in Goodfellas is so scary because he's like so unstable, and like here it's like, oh well, this is just funny. He gets angry and they cartoon fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Goodfeathers. You want to maybe now's a good time to talk about your issues with Rita and Runt.
Like Abbott and Costello, like Sonny and Cher, like Martin and Lewis, they're a perfect pair. Like Laurel and Harvey, like Fontaine and Lunt, they're perfectly mismatched. They're Rita and Runt.
So Rita and Runt is they would use this as basically a vehicle to parody musicals because you had Rita the cat voiced by Bernadette Peters, like a major Broadway star, and then Runt, who was voiced by Frank Welker, not a Broadway star or singer by any means, but they would use it like, so the one we watched was it Les Miserables?
Les Miserables.
Which was pretty impressive, the number
Les
of
Miserables to the animals.
The number of Les Mis songs they could parody in a 6 or 7 minute segment.
That was pretty good. Like,
that was pretty impressive. They put that on.
I think you recognize, the one in the beginning, you had, lovely ladies. They got Castle on a Cloud.
Do you hear the people sing?
Yeah. I think the only one
Who Am I?
Oh, Who Am I?
Yes, that's right. Who Am I?
I was actually shocked they didn't get On My Own, because that one's huge.
There was a version.
Oh,
there was something.
Oh, but they didn't include it. Yeah,
no, it's in there. There's it's short.
I missed that one. Yeah.
It's just very short.
Starlight, star bright, I wish I was any place but this. There is a flat in gay Paree, safe on a tree-lined avenue. No cats a la carte on the menu. Not in my flat in gay Paree. There is a chef of fine cuisine. He is a vegetarian. As he prepares a fine banquet, he says, Rita, you're my beloved pet. I know a flat where I can nap, safe on a chair or in a lap. I won't end up in a recipe, not in my flat in Gay Paree.
But yeah, you can. I'll throw it to you to talk about your issues with Runt's voice.
Okay, my issue with Runt is that he's basically it's Rain Man. Definitely. Amir and I have an autistic child. I'm not okay with that now.
Yeah, it just doesn't age well. It would never pass today. With such more awareness about the disability and with more incidents. Sorry,
right. The awareness of autism wasn't there in the 90s like it is now, and now there's the number of kids diagnosed with autism. It's 1 in 59. So chances are, now it's you can't do something like that now, because chances are, how many autistic kids could
somebody.
And people will be very
watching
offended.
this. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
I'll agree with you. I think that does not age well. I think obviously Rain Man was much. I think that movie came out in '88.
In the '80s,
so it's much closer in time to this. But I think that was most people who weren't familiar with it. That was their reference point for what an autistic person was.
Exactly.
Which is that's not really true.
Right.
Or at least, it's a spectrum of different things. So,
right.
But also, the funny thing was, other than the definitely that he says all the time, he's not so Rain Man. It's sort of, it's still, but the voice is still kind of I'm dumb. And the impetus for the thing, they said it was based on the idea of mice and men was part of an inspiration, which it's also a story about a person taking advantage of a mentally disabled person.
Yes, I remember reading that in high school. I remember reading that in high school.
Granted, Runt isn't, accidentally killing any mice or other pets.
Yeah, I remember reading that in middle school and being a bit disturbed by that. Even when I saw the movie, I didn't feel like it really did the book justice. I don't know what it was. I didn't think the movie was that great.
I liked the book when
the way they portrayed that. I didn't like the movie that much. I don't know
that's
why.
where you hear cartoons go, which way did he go, George? Which way did he go? If you ever hear a cartoon, an old cartoon do that, it's the movie, the old Mice and Men movie.
Yeah.
But I agree. There's so many cartoon. we're going to talk about another cartoon duo on this show, which is a smart one and a dumb one. That is a very, very, very common cartoon trope. That's Ren and Stimpy. That's it's a lot of them.
Yeah.
But you can do a character who is dumb that is not meant to be, offensive in any way. And I'm sure Frank Welker did not think he was doing anything mean at the time.
Right.
But
not intentionally, anyways.
No, but I knowing what I know now about how cartoon voices get generated, so many cartoon voices are impressions of things. Of other people,
stereotypes.
Well, we talked about this on Ren and Stimpy. Ren is basically an impression of three different people kind of mush into one, but Peter Lorre and Burl Ives and Kirk Douglas, and you hear, okay, so that's what Frank Welker is doing here. He's doing an impression of Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man because he thinks, oh, that's just a funny voice. And the kids aren't going to recognize it because that movie's not for kids. So it's just a weird sounding voice that they'll think is funny.
Yeah,
which is true, but you can't also divorce it from the context.
Right.
So Yeah.
'Cause I
There's
think,
kind
with,
of a lack of
especially with Runt, I
sensitivity.
think I don't know if it was mom or dad told me like, oh, they're doing Rain Man, and I mean, I didn't see Rain Man until I was 13 and was beginning to understand what autism was.
Yeah, I think that's probably around
Yeah.
the time I saw that movie too, and I knew the definitely thing because I feel like that had been a punchline in a lot of things.
Yeah.
But like, so when the critic did it, for example, the joke was in a different context because I think they were literally parodying Rain Man itself, so it didn't feel quite as like, we're just co-opting this meme voice for something else. Anyway, but to spend the other funny thing about this is it's only in the first season of Animaniacs, this segment. And I saw conflicting things about whether some people were saying, "Oh, well, they fired Bernadette Peters or she was too expensive." And I think what I saw, they said actually the reality was it was too hard to keep writing all these songs. So they said we're not going to do it. So yeah, Rita and Runt got axed, and it was definitely not brought back for the reboot. I don't think they're in it. There might be visually there, but I don't think they have any segments with them.
No, I mean they're compared to like other segments. I mean, when you have ones like Goodfeathers or Pinky and the Brain, they're not as good.
And Goodfeathers didn't come back in the reboot either, as far as I know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
did any of the other segments come back other than the Warners?
Pinky and the Brain, for sure. And I can't remember if there are others in there.
It seems weird that I mean, Pinky and the Brain ended up getting their own spinoff. So
they got 2 spinoffs.
Yeah,
that's true. I think at the time there was just less sensitivity to that group of people, and there was less awareness about how those ways of like, kind of almost stereotyping, like we are, was not addressed in a way. It wasn't identified how it was going to affect people like years later. So I think that's part of the reason why that it didn't age well. Compared
if you
to today.
think about it, there are a lot of
is
cartoons from like 80s or
comparatively.
90s that don't age well because they are like perpetuating like certain stereotypes or
yeah.
I mean, you
that
can
was
go on Disney
accepted
Plus
more
and
then.
there'll be like a disclaimer of like
warning.
It's
It's tough. I mean, doing
Maybe stereotyping,
it's hard to do stereotypes and have it age well. Like sometimes you can thread the needle and be a genius like Mel Brooks, but that's because of the very, very specific nature of what Mel Brooks is doing with it.
Yeah.
But getting on from this, we can speed past Buttons and Mindy because who cares?
Basically, yeah, she gets out of her little harness in her
She's a baby.
backyard, chases after something, and the dog chases her, and then the parents blame the dog.
Tom and Jerry at its best, Animaniac style.
This is very, this is extremely like the most like down the middle cartoon thing that they do. Like,
it's
and I know it's
almost too basic in some way.
Yeah, like I know that they're sort of doing an amped up version of like what older cartoons might be about. I think the better version of something like this is the Baby Herman cartoons.
Oh yeah,
the one at the beginning of Roger Rabbit, and then the ones they did a standalone, like Roger Rabbit cartoons.
Yeah,
and
I remember watching that with my brother all the time.
That's the same thing of like Roger trying to protect a baby from harm, but Roger is 1,000 times more interesting than Buttons because he can't talk.
Buttons is just a dog.
Yeah.
And it's really sad that the parents are like blaming the dog. I'm like, well, you guys are bad parents. Supervise your own kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, like be aware where your kid's going and actually supervise them. And
so let's talk about Slappy Squirrel.
She's a cranky old critter, she's bitter, we warn ya. She lives in a treehouse in Burbank, California, along with a nephew. He says spew, he's cheerful, then his aunt starts to rant. She gives him an earful, she's grumpy, he's happy. It's Generation Gappy, take a whirl with the squirrels, Skippy and Slappy.
And put a sock in it.
That's my Aunt Slappy.
Oh yeah.
So
you
want to say what her like the gimmick is behind her, what the concept
Basically,
is?
she's an old cartoon star, kind of the cranky old lady, and she raises her, little nephew.
Skippy, right?
Skippy, yeah.
I think these have aged better than I thought they would. Because I remember not being as into them at the time.
Me too.
And going back to them.
I mean, there were a few that were funny, like, because they had the one where they, like, basically torture Siskel and Ebert because they give her a bad review.
Yeah, they were just kind of like...
I remember we always laughed at the one about the can. There was,
Remind me.
I think like she has this neighbor. I guess Slappy throws a can in her neighbor's trash can, and her neighbor gets pissy about it. So they're constantly, Slappy and Skippy are constantly trying to like give her this can back.
Yeah, that feels about right.
Yeah.
For Slappy. Slappy is voiced by Sherry Stoner, and Sherry Stoner is one of the writers on the show. She worked on Tiny Toons as well, but very, very, very funny, like improv comedian in her own right. And once I knew that about her and that she was Slappy, and I went back and I watched some of these, I'm like, oh, I see it. Like she is such a good, like, you can picture her in the booth delivering these lines and how funny they are.
Yeah.
Because that like cranky old lady shtick works. Because again, it's like zingers and the stuff that maybe because we just couldn't identify with a cranky old lady character as kids, but like now when I go back and watch that, I'm like, these are pretty solid. I did send around the Who's on First one that they did.
A good one.
Oh yes, I remember used to listen to that when my father loved Who's on First. Abbott and Costello all the time.
Another stupid thing I committed to memory at some point.
Yes.
Who's on First?
We would listen to it all the time. Such great childhood memories from that one.
Yeah.
So and I love the way they give tribute to that.
Yeah. So you can do the side by side of here's a bit of Who's on First.
Yes.
You know the guy's names on the baseball team? Yes. Well, go ahead. Who's on first?
Yes.
I mean the guy's name.
Who?
The guy playing first.
Who?
The guy playing first base.
Who?
The guy on first base.
Who is on first?
What are you asking me for? I don't know.
Now, wait a minute.
I'm asking you who's on first.
That's his name.
Well, go ahead and tell me.
Who?
The guy on first.
That's it. That's his name.
Well, you ain't said nothing. I ain't asked you nothing.
You did.
You know the guy's name on first base?
Sure.
Well, tell me the guy's name on first base.
Who?
The guy playing first base.
Who is on first, Lou?
What are you asking me for?
Don't get excited.
And here's a bit of the Slappy Squirrel version where they are at Woodstock, and instead of doing like who, what, and I don't know for baseball players, it's the Who, the band, I'll name the band, and the other band. Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, Skippy, let's start over. Is there a band on stage?
Yes.
Does that band have a name?
Yes.
Do you know the name of that band?
Yes.
Then tell me the name of the band on stage.
Who?
The name of the band.
Who?
The band on stage.
Who?
The band playing on stage.
Who?
That's what I want to know.
I'm telling you.
Who is on stage?
Yes.
Who is?
Yes.
Oh, so the name of the band is Yes.
No, Aunt Slappy. Yes is not even at this concert.
Then who is on stage?
Yes.
Who is?
Yes.
That's what I just said. Yes is on stage.
No, Yes is not here. Who is on stage?
What are you asking me for?
I'm not.
And
Yeah, I know.
whoever came up with the idea of doing that as a Who's on First bit is great because it fits so well.
Oh, I was laughing so hard. Like, who is it? Who? Like, I'm asking you who it is. It's a Who's.
Yeah, it's the same exact bit. It is exactly the same bit.
Are you listening to me? It's a Who.
And it works. Like, and again, and for like nerdo kids like me, I'm like, oh, they're doing Abbott and Costello. I bet a lot of kids would not know this Abbott and Costello routine now.
Probably not.
But
yeah.
This is one of those things that just works super well. It's just again feels like the writers being just handed the keys and going like, if you think that's funny, go do it.
And can I just go back for a second to the old cranky old lady thing bit with Sherry Stoner does that? I actually remember very well when Animaniacs came out, the Simpsons cranky old lady with the cats. So for me, like when I saw that, it kind of associated with that's that cranky old lady at the end of the street. That's so mad and cranky all the time that we don't even want to see.
Well, that,
you know what I
the
mean?
Simpsons cat lady is like straight up delusional.
Yeah,
Right.
She's not just cranky.
And actually, okay, here's a crazy story. When I used to live in Park La Brea, there was a cranky old lady just like that who would hide behind her blinds all the time and like, get out of here, you kids. And I'm not kidding. She was exactly like her. And there were like 3 cats. We had the cranky old lady in her room.
You know, the Simpsons.
So I think about that, like childhood, like that is that's like who she is, the cranky old lady.
Yeah, the Simpsons traffic in tropes all the time. And so we've all known the crazy cat lady.
Yeah, it exists.
Something happens. Probably toxoplasmosis. Anyway, so that leads us to our last segment that I think we should definitely spend a lot of time on, which is Pinky and the Brain.
Of course.
Gee, Brain, what do you want to do tonight? The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
The Pinky and the Brain. Yes, Pinky and the Brain. One is a genius, the other's insane. They're laboratory mice. Their genes have been sliced. They're Pinky and the Brain. Brain, 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 brain. Before each night is done, your plan will be unfurled by the dawning of the sun. He'll take over the world. The Pinky and the Brain. Yes, Pinky and the Brain. Their twilight campaign is easy to explain. To prove their mousy worth, they'll overthrow the earth. They're Pinky and the Brain. Brain, 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 brain. Narf!
You know, the simple premise is laid right out there in the song. They're just there to take over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that they were based on, I didn't know what they were based on until recently. They were based on two of the writers. So Tom Minton and Eddie Fitzgerald, I believe his name is. They were both writers on Tiny Toons. Tom Minton is the Brain. He was this kind of quiet, soft-spoken guy.
I didn't like the look of the Brain was sort of based on him a bit.
And same for Fitzgerald. So Fitzgerald was the louder of the two, and they were kind of buddy-buddy.
Oh,
and so, like, Tom Ruegger, again, creator of Animaniacs, was also on Tiny Toons. And he would hear them, like, kind of, like, talking to each other, you know, making each other sort of laugh off in the corner. And you couldn't really tell what they were up to. And so he got this idea of, like they're plotting to take over the world. And that became the inspiration for Pinky and the Brain. So he had Paul Rugg or whoever draw these two writers, and then they just sort of took them and then made them into mice.
Yeah.
And then boom, there they were, Pinky and the Brain, fully formed.
What an interesting choice of animals. Let's make them rats.
Yeah, well, I think they had them be like gene spliced lab rats.
Right.
Yeah, and one
with a huge head.
And the other
was insane.
Yeah.
Although I don't know that Pinky's insane. But I apparently like Tom.
He has some weird quirks.
Yeah, I guess Fitzgerald would actually say things like "narf."
Narf and point and egad.
Yeah, he would say "narf" and egad stuff. So that made its way into the character, and they had Rob Paulson do point narf stuff in the vocals. But yeah, Brain is Orson Welles, and I love that choice. And apparently Maurice LaMarche, who does the voice, would just do this at parties and stuff. He's like famous for having this really good, Orson Welles impression. And so I had you guys watch the episode Yes Always,
Nice.
which is not about them trying to take over the world. It's literally just Brain in a recording studio.
Yeah.
So before you watched the Orson Welles clip, did you have any idea what this was?
I kind of had a vague memory of it, seeing it on the show. Like, he's saying yes, as always, and this kind of went back and forth a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Which is also Maurice LaMarche on The Critic doing the same bit. So Orson Welles, near the end of his life, did not have as much money as he once had, and had sunk to the level of doing these commercials. And famously, there was, there's the champagne commercial where he's really drunk. You can find the outtakes of that.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, but this one was, he did this series of voiceovers for like frozen peas or something. Like, we know a little farm in Lincolnshire where Mrs. Buckley lives. Every July, peas grow there. And you can hear, there's audio of the like outtakes of this as he's like arguing with the engineers and the directors and stuff. And, there's too much directing around here. all this stuff that he's saying.
We know a remote farm in Lincolnshire where Mrs. Buckley lives. Every July, peas grow there. Do you really mean that?
Yeah, so in other words, I'd start half a second late.
Don't you think you really want to say July over the snow? Isn't that the fun of it?
If you can make it almost when that shot disappears, it'll make my...
I think it's so nice that you see a snow-covered field and say every July peas grow there. We know a remote farm in Lincolnshire where Mrs. Buckley lives. Every July, peas grow there. We aren't even in the fields, you see.
Yeah, we are.
We're talking about them growing, and she's picked them.
Yeah.
On what?
In July.
I don't understand you, then. What must be over for July?
When we get out of that snowy field.
When I was out, we were onto a can of peas, a big dish of peas when I said in July.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, always.
In July.
I'm always past that.
You are?
Yes. Well, that's about where I say in July.
And they just had him do, that's the Animaniacs episode. It just looked like word for word, all the stuff that Brain is saying to these people and all this other, I can put, again, a side by side. It's the exact same dialogue.
We know a remote farm in Lincolnshire where Mrs. Buckley lives. Every July, peas grow there. Do you really mean that?
Yeah, but if you could start a half second later.
Don't you think you really want to say July over the snow? Isn't that the fun of it? I think it's so nice that you see a snow-covered field and say every July peas grow there. We're talking about them growing and she's picked them.
Well, we want to be out of that snowy field.
But I was out. We were onto a can of peas, a big dish of peas when I said in July.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, always. I'm always past that.
You are?
Yes.
Wow.
And they were just like, yeah, we're just going to do this as an Animaniacs bit in an era where, only like people in the industry had probably ever heard these weird outtakes of Orson Welles being extremely difficult. But just so weird. But we should probably talk about what a normal Pinky and the Brain episode looks like.
Yeah, and then of course the one, there's pretty much, it follows a formula too, that, Brain has his idea of like, okay, this is what we're going to do tonight to try to take over the world, and there's like one little thing in the way there's something they have to do to get there.
They need to steal a machine, or they need to raise money for a thing.
Yeah, like the one you had us watch. Yeah, he had to go on Jeopardy to raise like $99,000.
I was thinking that's so you with your a game show.
And of course, and of
Yes,
course,
always.
like Pinky always has a moment where he says, "Oh, that's brilliant." Oh, wait, no. What about what if whatever? Like in this one, he was like, "What if they're not wearing pants or something? So they can get their change."
Are you talking about the what Pinky would do to like inspire Brain for his?
Oh yeah,
plan?
he'd always do. Yeah, he'd always say something to inspire him, and then are you pondering what I'm pondering?
That would be
Are you thinking what?
Are you pondering what I'm pondering? I think so, Brain, but where are we going to find rubber pants our size? Like, there's that interchange you'd always get. But then you'd also get, like, what I loved was that sometimes Pinky would, through his idiocy, sabotage the plan. But I think the cleverer ones were the ones where Brain kind of gets hoisted on his own petard.
Right.
Because he didn't listen to Pinky.
Like, he's going on his own spectrum, and then
or
Pinky
even
like,
like
tries
in
to
the
give
one
him
you
an
had
idea.
us watch, it was sort of like, the question he had to answer was the quote that Pinky was always saying from the TV show, and Pinky even tells him who says it, and like if you had listened to Pinky,
you would have gotten the answer right.
That's right, yeah. And would have like wagered everything and lost all your money.
Yeah.
Correct answer.
Actually, the ones I thought were interesting were the ones where they got so close, and then for whatever reason, Brain would just drop the ball.
Yeah. There's many. They quickly realized this was a very popular segment, and which is why obviously the two spin-offs.
Why they had their own spin-off.
Yeah, there was a Pinky and the Brain show, and then they did Pinky and the Brain and Elmira, where they brought in that character. I don't remember it at all, but it exists.
I know it did, but I never really saw it.
When I saw that, I was like, why would they bring Elmira in?
It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's like it doesn't make any sense to bring her in. Pinky and the Brain is a two-hander. Like
something got missed. I skipped that phase of it. I watched just Pinky and the Brain.
Yes, always.
Yes, love that show.
Narf. What a great there's a reason they kind of works as a standalone thing, because the concept is so strong of just watching these two. For as smart as Brain seems to be, he's not all that smart. Mm-hmm. Watching them try and take over the world is just a very fun idea.
Right.
So
I don't know why. I know this sounds really out there, but he kind of reminds me a little bit of Smithers and Mr. Burns. Because like Mr. Burns wants to take over the world too, and Smithers just kind of goes with it a little bit.
But Smithers' deal is that he's a sycophant.
Yeah.
Pinky's not exactly.
Not saying, but they want to take over the world too. It seems like
they have like a weird love-hate relationship.
Yeah, a lot of love on Smithers' side.
I meant Pinky and the Brain, but yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Yes, no, there's definitely the Smithers. Happy birthday, Mr. Smithers. I just think,
good impersonation, man.
I've done less voices on this show than I thought I would end up doing.
Yeah.
There's another thing that I just loved doing was doing those voices. Like I said, if I was going to do Yakko's World, I was going to do it in Yakko's voice.
You were able to do Yakko's voice, I think.
Yakko, he's easy. Yeah, he's just doing this sort of Beatles voice, and there's no reason for it. for Jess Harnell to just do this Beatles voice. He just walked into the audition and thought that would be fun.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of Seth Green, who does Chris Griffin on Family Guy. He walked in there. He did like a very like the way that character looks and is written. He kind of did this like surfer dude type voice for him, and he's like, before I leave, I just want to try one thing. And then he did what is sort of a version of Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, and that's what they went with. That's Chris Griffin's voice. It's like, oh wait, was she a great big fat person? That is Chris Griffin. And kind of getting back to what we talked about before with some of these voices for all these characters, like that. There's so much of that where the more you watch animation, the more you realize like the inspiration for a lot of the voices you hear because they're from iconic voices from the past. Yeah, put through the filter of this, an impression. Just a really fun process. So
slapstick style.
Yeah. So we're coming here to the end. So you know what time it is?
To make bizarre faces?
To encourage children to send us candy?
Wheel of morality. Turn. Tell us the lesson that we should learn. Moral number 5. Never eat anything bigger than your head. So what is the moral of the story, guys? We're here at the end of the podcast. Why do you think it is? Why do you think it is that people still, love Animaniacs? Like as we mentioned, it got a reboot, and for Hulu to reboot Animaniacs, they obviously thought there had to be an audience for it. People still love this thing. Mm-hmm. They want to hear, the Warners and Pinky and the Brain come back. Why do you think it is that people would still love Animaniacs all these years later?
I mean, the humor, obviously, I think definitely how meta it really is.
Yeah. There's a lot of inside baseball in this thing. Like we didn't really touch on this, but like even in the song, they make a reference to pay or play contracts, which are entertainment industry contracts that are used for basically what they are is when if an actor has a pay or play contract, it means if you end up cutting them from the thing or recasting them, they still get paid. Yeah. But like, no 8-year-old's going to know what that is. There's the Jerry Lewis stuff, but there's a lot of stuff just how entertainment is made and the people who make it buried. So you're right. Like the meta stuff is really, really strong here in a lot of ways.
I think for me, it's just like how people crave the cartoon experience, like Looney Tunes or Tiny Toons that is not on TV as much. That there's a market for it. People want to experience slapstick like they used to, like the golden era of TV, where me and my brother we would enjoy all these shows, and it's a way to introduce it to the new generation with having with them not knowing a lot about it and being so meta, like you said, to really bring them in and say, oh, this is what these references are, and that's what they're talking about, and then they want to learn more about that and enjoy it in such a fun, silly way with all the different skits and styles. It just it works.
It definitely, you're right. It fills this void that when Looney Tunes is not there, it feels like you need something. And Tiny Toons did that, and then this took over. Freakazoid, I think, does not fill that niche. It's its own thing.
Yeah,
but
90s reboot to the max with everything lately, the past 10 years or so.
Well, again, it's because people from the 80s and 90s are getting to this point where they're missing, they're feeling nostalgic for that, and also they want, I think there's a desire like, oh, I wish there was some version of this that my kids could watch because maybe they won't be interested in the old stuff. Maybe they'd want the shinier new version of Animaniacs, but. Yeah. I do think it has remained timeless because it is absurd, and the way it goes about delivering jokes, the way they set up their stuff. It other than the Rita and Runt stuff, which aged poorly. I think if you had done a different voice for Runt, then you might still have it would still work. Yeah, it's the only thing about that I think is kind of a black mark on it.
It's a bit of a minus, yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a minus, but again, in terms of if you swap that out, it would be just as timeless or still work the way everything else in the show works.
Yeah.
And it just, again, people want, it is zany to the max.
Yes.
And, I
with
think... bologna in their slacks. With their bologna in their slacks.
See? How it rhymed? It's just too good.
It's just... It's just a testament to I think absurdism can in some ways last longer than other forms of comedy because it's just fun to see something weird happen. Yeah. And the Warners are just so merry about the way they go about delivering that. So,
Yeah.
guys, any final words on Animaniacs before we bring this to a close?
I think Animaniacs is timeless because they're zany to the max, they're pulling their slacks, and anything goes. And Jerry Lewis, his legacy lives on forever, I think, because of the show in many ways, and along with many other references from Goodfellas and West Side Story and everything.
Most people in America don't give a shit about Jerry Lewis.
Yeah.
Finally.
I don't know. Finally. Oh, I'm in the sky. Why?
All right, that's a good place to leave it. So let me do some quick admin here as we wrap things up. If you like this podcast, go to wherever you found it and leave it a nice review, Apple or Stitcher, whatever you get your podcast from. Also, if you have feedback on Animaniacs or our other recent episodes on Gremlins, Final Fantasy VI, Power Ballads, and our upcoming episodes, which include Pokemon. We're going to do a Pokemon episode. Again, I mentioned DuckTales is in the mix. And get your uteruses running because we're going to do My So-Called Life pretty soon. So that's going to be fun. So any feedback you have on that, tweet it to @NostalgianPod or find us on Instagram and message us there. We'll read that feedback on the show. And until next time, that is one more entry in the Nostalgium Arcanum.
Goodbye, Nurse.
Well, that's our show.
Hope you had as much fun as we did.
We're touched, so you be touched. Good night, everybody.
Phew, am I glad that's over.
I have a headache this big, and it's got Warner Brothers written all over it.
Produced by... Gimme a break. Bunch of overpaid credit-grabbing do-nothings.
Written by? Oh, now there's a joke. You call the dreck they stick us with writing? Please.
The Great Stonini. Just once I'd like that guy to write a song in my key. Just once.
Like that would do any good.
Oh, yeah. It's all about you. That's right.
Voice director? Who's that? You know, she's the person who tells you to redo every line like 50 times.
Yeah, and faster.
Her? I hate her! Rob Paulson as Yakko. Yeah, right.
Tress McNeil as Dot. As if.
Jess Harnell as Wacko. I hear he's cute. Ooh, goody. Here come the storyboard artists. What do they do? Besides drawing us off-model and taking 3-hour coffee breaks, not much. Look at all those names. Who are all these people?
You know, they're artists, Wacko.
I'll bet.
You might want to stop by the studio sometime. You can meet a few of them.
I'm busy. Executive in charge of production? What does that mean? No one really knows. Executive producer, Steven Spielberg? No. Steven Springblush.
No, Springbile. No, Spreel's Love. Nah, Mr. Kate Capshaw.
Hey, you want to go get a cappuccino?
Sure. Wacko, you coming?
Nah, I got a date. When do you not have a date? I got a date, so sue me.
She will. Hey, did you turn off the mics?
No, I thought you did.
Not me.
Uh-oh.